What's up, good people? Welcome to the Basketball Society podcast. This is Martin Soaries, and I'm glad to have you here on the show, whether you're new or a returning listener. I want to talk about the first game of the women's college basketball season. It just finished not too long ago, just finished watching. Make sure you're subscribed to the Basketball Society podcast, wherever you're listening from. We are on Apple Podcasts and on YouTube. And if you go to the Basketball Society YouTube channel, you'll see much more content than just the podcast, but all the podcast episodes are on there. Video episodes of the podcast, of course, where we have special guests. Hannah Hidalgo, who I'm getting ready to talk about a little bit from this game. She was the first player guest on the show, I think a couple years ago now. This is before she even committed. But yeah, plenty more podcast and other basketball content to enjoy on the YouTube channel. You can follow me on social media at Soaries on Twitter and at Martin.Soaries on Instagram. And be sure to follow Basketball Society on Instagram at Basketball Society _. So just a few thoughts from this game. Notre Dame, South Carolina turned into a blowout in the end, 100-71. I want to start with the two freshmen. Hannah finished with 31 points. She played all the way to the end, as anyone who knows her would expect her to. It's really cool to see Hannah get this opportunity from game one, and I can't wait to see and even talk about more. And I haven't really gone into it, but I look forward to being able to talk more about what it's going to look like with Olivia and Hannah on the floor together. I'll probably talk more about that at another time, but I just think it's really cool that even though a lot of it does have to do with Olivia not being out there yet, it's really cool that Hannah gets this opportunity from game one, that Neo Ivy obviously knows what she has and has full confidence in her. I think Notre Dame's personnel, even when they get Olivia back, to go up against, like, they're going to be a totally different team with Olivia. Their ceiling, their potential, their capability is just going to be different. Things are going to open up for different people. Hannah's not going to have to take over 20 shots, I'm pretty sure, and act like the lead alpha scorer as a freshman in her first game. Like, I love that Hannah got this kind of opportunity, and she's going to get these kind of opportunities right away in her career. But in terms of the roster and the team this season, seeing them against another power, I mean, these are two top 10 programs. One is without one of their top players, of course, Olivia Miles for Notre Dame, but these are two top 10 programs, and South Carolina ended up steamrolling them. So I do think Notre Dame's roster is a little bit limited. I love me some Sonia Citron. I think she can really play. Maddie Westbeld, the 6'3" forward, she didn't shoot the ball that well, but I loved the shots that she got and that she was taking. I don't know much about her, but she seems like a big forward, a stretch big that can really stretch it. And I see some interesting offensive capability there in Westbeld. But I mean, South Carolina, we know they've got the horses. Dawn has retooled. The front line is retooled, and they might be even more dynamic with their guard play. And I'm going to get to South Carolina in a minute. Hannah can be a scorer. She can score the ball. She can do anything you ask her to. But when a freshman is your best player, that can be difficult. Unless that freshman is like such a dominant force, like, Carmelo at Syracuse. He was not your typical freshman. And from the beginning of the game, Hannah drove right to the basket. She went right. I mean, Hannah really, like Neil Ivy said, she plays with no fear. I've been watching this girl since before high school. She is fearless. And so I wasn't surprised that she went right to it. She didn't let the game come to her. She was aggressive. And I was saying during the game, I mean, she has no choice based on how their team is set up. They needed Hannah to score. Hannah is not necessarily a volume scorer. Now, her senior year, her dad was her coach. He was running her off Iverson screens. She was the focal point. She was a volume scorer. And I'm glad that she got that experience her senior year, because I think that got her a little more acclimated to taking, over 15, 20 shots in a game. For her to have to take 24 shots in her first college game, that's not really, she can do that, but that's not really who Hannah is. And I don't even think it's who she wants to be. Like, she can do it when she has to. And I think this right away, I think she recognized and the team recognized, like, Hannah's going to be aggressive and we need scoring. We need people to be aggressive. She's their most dynamic guard. She gets in the paint the best. So she's got to be aggressive to score the ball. But from game one, if you're a freshman, as great as she is, that's too bad that she has to be like that. She's the best player right away. I mean, I love it for her. I love the opportunity. But in terms of Notre Dame, that's a little difficult. I do think they're going to have a whole new operation to work with when Olivia comes back, and the game's going to become a lot easier. So like when you look at the other freshman, the other star freshman in this game, Milaysia Fulwiley, Milaysia comes off the bench for South Carolina. I was wondering how soon Dawn would go to her. I was wondering if she would start. Dawn brought Milaysia off the bench. She got to it right away. I did a breakdown. I actually did a breakdown video on the YouTube channel. In the same video, the first half of the video was Keomi McMiller, and the second half of the video was Milaysia Fulwiley. Go and watch the breakdown video, because I was like, man, no, this is different. I was really excited for her, but also really interested to see how Dawn Staley was going to use her. After last year, when South Carolina lost to Iowa in the Final Four, I was just wondering if Zia Cook was really used to the full essence of her capabilities, not to challenge Dawn or to critique her or any. I don't do that kind of stuff. I just watched Zia in high school, and I talked about it then. I talk about it a lot. You're very rarely you're never the same player in high school that you are in college, whether it's because you evolve or because you regress. Like you always change. You're some version of the same player, but you become different. You become stronger. You just become a different player. And so if you're a player that played with a lot of free, like these players like Austin Rivers and, LaMelo Ball, like players who played a certain way in high school, they go to college, right? They're not playing that way once they go to college. Like no college coach other than, maybe Steph Curry's coach at Davidson is letting players, just run rampant and play that kind of just willy-nilly basketball. College is about system, structure, plays, discipline, efficiency, right? You're not taking a bunch of shots. You're typically just not given that kind of freedom. Over the years, I was always watching Zia to see, like, man, she was so gifted in high school. And I know it's not going to be that, but and again, I'm not critiquing the South Carolina system. It kind of resembles some other like systems, the Spurs, the Patriots, the Patriot way, that kind of thing. Like Dawn kind of has that kind of thing going at South Carolina, where, not to say it's like military and super strict and disciplined, like, Dawn doing the chicken head in practice, like they're having fun and enjoying themselves, don't get me wrong, but it ain't LSU, you know what I mean? The difference between Dawn's operation and Kim's operation at LSU, not critiquing either one or saying one is better than the other, but if you catch my drift, it's kind of two different kinds of cultures, right? LSU is, Angel Reese, she's encouraged to talk trash. Kim Mulkey, she don't care about none of that. Talk trash, talk your talk, do your dances on the side. Kim Mulkey don't have nothing to say about that. That's they play with personality. South Carolina just goes about their business typically in a different way. That culture that Dawn Staley has set. And again, not to say that has held back a player like Zia Cook, but when you look at a player like Milaysia Fulwiley, just knowing how Dawn and that program operates, I was just like, okay, I'm excited for her, but I really hope she can be who she is. And in her first college game, going in transition, putting the ball around her back, up and under, jelly, that's who she is. The fact that she was comfortable enough to do that and free enough to do that, I was just glad to see the freedom. Again, I'm not saying that Dawn holds her players back or anything, or is too strict with them or anything like that. I'm just glad she felt confident and free enough to make that move. Because look, that was the first game. She's going to have her freshman highs and lows. She's going to keep figuring things out. But listen, she's coming off the bench. And look, comparing it to Hannah's situation on Notre Dame, Milaysia's not the best player on her team. As a freshman, she took half the shots that Hannah took. Very different situations for these two freshmen. Hannah has to operate as a volume shooter and scorer right away. That's what her team requires of her based on her situation. Milaysia is in a system where she can come off the bench, shoot maybe 10 to 15 shots, win by 20, 30, and still have a great game, have some great highlights. This version of South Carolina looks really, really good. Any coach and like anyone who knows how coaches like to talk, especially at the college level, great post-entry passes, they just go nuts for that. And like any coach who preaches and practices and really tries to teach elite post-entry ought to be showing their teams South Carolina high-low post-entry possessions. I mean, they get it in there. And I mean, Cardoso's obviously a huge target, but there are other huge targets who don't catch it that cleanly, put it up, and finish as well as she does. I don't think Cardoso needs to be Aaliyah Boston, where she, maybe she starts to look to add like a 10 to 15 foot jump shot to her offensive game. Maybe more of a back to the basket, game to the jump hook. If I'm looking at anything that could be a weakness or a hindrance for South Carolina down the road, it's where I think Cardoso would need to really hold down that scoring inside. But look, they've got Ashlyn Watkins off the bench. They have Sakima Walker off the bench, who didn't play too much in this game, but Sakima was at Rutgers a couple years ago. I covered her. She can play. And they've got Chloe Kitts that starts, on the front line for them. So Dawn has revamped the front line. And going to the perimeter, I think South Carolina's guard play is really interesting. I mean, I already talked about Milaysia, and it starts with her. I don't think they've had a guard as dynamic as her. Raven Johnson got to a couple nice pull-ups today, was shooting the three smoothly with conviction. I don't know how many she hit. She didn't hit a whole bunch, but she was shooting them. She was just shooting them, really, without any hesitation, which is dope. I just love the fact that South Carolina has guards that look like they're all ready to shoot the three ball. I actually didn't know that they got Pow Pow as a transfer. I either saw that when it happened and forgot, or I never knew. Because once I saw Pow Pow out there, I'm like, wait, that's a huge pickup. I saw more speed. I saw more willingness to shoot the three-point shot. I think Dawn is willing to evolve a little bit into more of an offensive identity, because she is a defensive coach, but I do think she's starting to embrace a little more offense. Just by seeing Milaysia Fulwiley play with the kind of freedom she's playing with lets me know. Like I think this is a little more offensive minded South Carolina team. They're gonna be rooted in their defense. That's who their coach is. That's who they're gonna be. But they know they have to score. And they have the ability to score, and I think they're being encouraged to. We have a special place in our heart at Basketball Society for Miss Hannah Hidalgo. It was awesome to see her so aggressive, so confident in her first game. I wouldn't expect anything less. We've known she's special. I don't expect her. I mean, if she's going to keep having to be a volume shooter and scorer for Notre Dame, that might be a little concerning, but I think they'll figure ways out to play, to get more out of different people, because they do have good players. Sonia Citron. I really like West Beld, even though she didn't shoot well. I really like the shots that she took. I think they have some good ability there. They're not super deep, but again, I just can't wait to see what this team looks like with Olivia Miles. That's the only way. That's when we're going to be able to really say what Notre Dame is and what their ceiling is. South Carolina, Dawn Staley, they have revamped, retooled. They are looking national championship Final Four caliber again. Notre Dame, we'll see how they look when Olivia Miles gets back. Subscribe wherever you're listening from, whether on YouTube or Apple Podcasts. And if you're on Apple Podcasts, go down and leave a rating and review of the show. I would really appreciate that. Tap in with me on the comments on YouTube and follow us on social media. Stay tapped in with the show. I'll talk to you guys next time.